Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Don Lemon Show, the live at 5 version at least, where we talk to our subscribers and the folks who are watching. We're so happy that you could join us today. Just in case you've been living under a rock, Kamala Harris introduced her running mate yesterday, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. It was a raucous, electrifying rally in Philadelphia at the Leah Core Center at Temple University yesterday evening. It was fantastic. Hopefully you watched our coverage and our commentary with Governor Patrick Duvall, with Chris Cillizza, and others last night. It was live on this channel, and I highly encourage you to check it out. But enough plugging. No, not enough plugging. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Of course, that helps the algorithm, and it helps us to build a Lemon Nation, as we call it, because we know that you all are lemon heads. We're trying to get a bunch of people to be lemon heads, including someone I know who's watching, and that's Katie Couric. So everyone say hi to Katie Couric if you can, and visit her channel as well. Okay, so we have a lot to dig into, and fortunately, I have a stellar panel to help me break it all down. Friend of the show, Tim Miller, host of the Bulwark podcast, co-host of the Next Level podcast, and an MSNBC contributor. Richard Green is here. He's an author. He's a lawyer. He's a political communication strategist and a renowned celebrity speech coach, also a friend of the show. Cliff Albright is here. Cliff, welcome to the program, a co-founder and executive director of the Black Voters Matter Fund. And Harry Siegel is the editor of The City and a columnist for New York Daily News. I'm grateful to have all of you. How are you doing? Everybody doing okay?
Doing great, baby.
Doing okay. Doing great. Yeah, doing great. Okay, so listen, the first person to speak up was, of course, Tim Miller. And Tim, I'm going to get to you first, but I just want to tell people what we're covering here. We're going to talk about that Philadelphia rally. We're going to talk about Shapiro Walz Harris's speech. We're going to talk about Vance, how he's continued to implode, and he's doing some weird shit. He's like stalking the vice president. It's just bizarre. It's like the biggest self-own that I have seen in politics recently. So, Tim, I know that we have a short time with you. I want to start. This is a clip from Walz's speech last night in Philadelphia, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. Here it is.
All regular people I grew up with in the heartland. JD studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on. That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
My favorite part's coming up.
If he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So.
That was savage. So, Tim, I wanted you first because I know that Josh Shapiro was your favorite, right? That's your odds on bet that you wanted. So, has Tim Walz won you over?
Not as much as he's won Kamala over, which was the most important thing for him to do, since she was the one that got to pick, not me, in the Bulwark podcast. But she was loving that. Were you just watching her face during that whole the couch joke? I mean, she was doing everything she could not to just bust open. And so I really think it came down to that. They seem to have a good vibe. He brings good balance to her, as far as just their biography and background, being from the heartland, being a teacher, being a soldier, being a coach. You know, Shapiro and her had pretty similar backgrounds. Obviously, they're different racially, but like they both were lawyers and prosecutors and politicians. So I think that was appealing. And I think that, all evidence I've heard publicly and privately is that she just liked him better. Maybe they got along better is maybe a better way to put it. And that's important. You want to have somebody to get along with. I'm just a little nervous, Don, that if it ends up being an election that comes down to Georgia and Pennsylvania, which it very well might, all Donald Trump has to do to become the president again is win the states he won last time, plus Georgia and Pennsylvania. Yeah. He wins Pennsylvania by 1%. So we might be kind of like, why did we go with the guy from Minnesota again? So I'm a little nervous about that still.
Okay, so you kind of answered my question, but you kind of didn't. So he didn't really win you over.
No, sorry. He's fine. He's fine.
He's fine. So cautiously optimistic because, I kind of like him. I like Josh Shapiro as well.
Yeah,
in a
I like
nutshell?
him. I'll answer the question. I like it. I'd love to have a beer with him. I'd love to go watch a LSU Tigers game with him and, talk about the defense that he ran at Mankato West. I don't know. Like, what my focus on is how do you appeal to these, to my people, like the former Republicans, the swing voters, center right voters that voted for Bush, voted for Romney, and voted for Biden. She's got to hold on to them if she wants to win. And I don't think he adds anything with that. He has a very progressive record. He I think some
You
big
said you don't think he adds anything?
that he's like, oh, that he puts on a hat. He can shoot a gun and he knows farm talks. That means he must be a conservative. And it's like, not really, man. A lot of people that live in the country know the local country liberal. I mean, small towns have liberal teachers and liberal coaches. Like that's a thing people get. So it's fine. Like he's fine. I'm just, I'm not.
Did you say you don't think he brings anything? Did you say that, or did I not miss it? Did I?
I think that he brings balance to the ticket. I think that his bio is good, and I think that the left is excited about him. That's not nothing. I think people are going to be turning. Look at that event today in Eau Claire. People are going to be turning out. I think that's not. I don't think he brings anything to appeal to the Atlanta suburb Brian Kemp voting center right voter that the ticket needs. I don't think he adds anything for that, but that's okay. He does other things.
Voter, you believe, right?
Well, the good news is that Donald Trump is going to help win over those Brian Kemp voters because he did a pretty good job of imploding the Republican Party at his rally right here. I'm based in Georgia, by the way, so I know a little something about Atlanta and Georgia.
So why do you say that?
The part about, well, one, I'm excited about Walz. I think there's a lot of folk that are really excited. I actually think he does bring something in terms of understanding, some of Middle America, Middle West. I don't think he's just a Minnesota liberal. He talks a lot about what his district looked like that he won in his first congressional election. And so I think obviously he's known now for some of the more progressive things that they've done there in Minnesota, which I think is a good thing. But, Tim talked about, possibly losing Pennsylvania and Georgia. You also had the risk of winning Pennsylvania, but then losing Michigan and Georgia, because of having Shapiro and North Carolina. People underestimate the degree to which you had people in some other states besides Michigan that were very concerned and a part of the uncommitted movement. But here in Georgia, I think, let me tell you this, and I've been saying this for months. Our organization is based here. We did a lot of work here in the 2020 election, it's the 2021 runoffs, and the 2022 Senator Warnock election. And we've been saying for months that Black folks are going to come out in Georgia, and that Georgia was still in play even before Kamala Harris was named as the presumptive nominee. And now that she has been, I'm here to tell you the energy here is electric. I was at her rally here in Atlanta. And so between that energy, and then as I said, there's a big split in Georgia Republicans between Trump and Kemp. I mean, we saw this during the 2020 election. We saw it during the Herschel Walker election, which is a whole other story. But
okay.
Republicans are split.
Okay, I get your point. And I want to stick with Tim. The reason I'm sticking with Tim is because Tim has to leave. Okay, and then you guys will get a chance to weigh in. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Please tell me I'm wrong. Jump in, everybody. It's okay.
I'm going to disagree with you because I think this is me. And by the way, I predicted Trump. I think you did too, Tim, as well. I predicted Trump would win in 2016.
No, I didn't. I was wrong about that one.
No, I did. No, I was right about 2016.
I have some other right ones. We can go through my ledger if you want. I've been right on some, wrong on some. I was wrong.
So what I think that Tim Walz brings something to the Democratic Party that they haven't had for decades, and that's been the ability to be able to speak to the sort of Rust Belt working class person. And as much as I like Josh Shapiro, the contrast of those two gentlemen on stage yesterday could not have been bigger for me and more glaring. While I think Josh Shapiro did a great, slick, stomp speech for a traditional sort of politician, in the Obama and Clinton sort of, esque era. I think that Tim Walz did something that the Democrats haven't had in a long time, and he speaks like a normal person. And I think that people will listen to that. I just think that maybe Josh Shapiro, even though I did, again, liked him, I thought he was odds-on favorite, I think he might be a little bit too slick for what's happening.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
how
this comes down to look, and I want to say, I do think I also think the other thing Tim Walz brings, I should mention, is because of exactly what you're saying, the way that he talks in his bio. I think he brings a really nice contrast with JD Vance if they ever get on the debate stage together. JD, they're all trying to duck that now, but I think that they both went to war, and then JD came back, and you saw that contrast there. He went to Yale, he went to Hollywood, he went to venture capitalists, he went to his community. I think he'll be good at kind of making JD look like a phony. But I just think that I think we have a disagreement, looks like maybe with Richard too, about how voters vote. And some people think the voters vote based on like vibes, and they look at Tim Walz and they're like, oh, that guy looks kind of like me and talks normal. And other people say voters vote on policy, ideology and policy and what their views are. And again, we could be wrong. We'll see in November. All I'm saying is that during the midterms, we saw it. We already tested this in 2022. Tim Walz ran for governor of Minnesota. He didn't do very well in rural Minnesota. He won because Minneapolis is so big. Josh Shapiro ran in Pennsylvania, and he did great in rural Pennsylvania. So the question is, could that have been? There could have been a ton of different reasons for that, and maybe he wouldn't have worn well in a presidential. That's possible, but I think that his more moderate views could have been helpful.
And if you heard me yelling, it wasn't yelling at you. I was yelling at my dog who's barking at like if a leaf falls.
I thought that was Richard barking at me because he's just shaking his head.
I think there's disagreement over at the Bulwark about the couch joke because Walz seems really eager to go on offense where he did his little couch jab at the end of that clip that we saw.
Yeah.
What did you think of? What did you make of?
I mean,
that?
JD Vance didn't fuck a couch. All right, he didn't do it. That didn't happen. So in case there's any wonder, JD Vance did not fuck a couch. That didn't happen.
Tim Walz didn't say he'd fuck a couch.
If you're running for vice president, I just think there are a lot of things to joke about besides the couch. It's fine with me. I actually don't care that much. Some of my colleagues were clutching their pearls about it a little bit. I wasn't clutching my pearls. I think it's fine. I also think that if I was writing the speech and I was making fun of JD Vance, there is unlimited material to work with. And so I don't know if I would have used the fake couch joke, but whatever. I
thought it was good. I actually liked it because he didn't actually say that he banged a couch. And if you aren't part of the political class or the chattering class of people who pay attention to this, you would have no idea. It would go right over your head. He just said that's if he could get up off the couch. So he didn't actually say anything.
I would say I think your view would be different though. If I'm just saying, I think your view would be different if JD Vance was up on stage making an oblique joke to Kamala Harris's sex life. I think people would be like, all right, come on, man. That's not cool.
It from them. I would say that's normal for them. I mean, they're upset about that when, okay, he didn't do it, and I don't think they should be saying it, but to make a joke about something that's out in the zeitgeist, right? Because this is a party that says, Ilhan Omar was doing her brother, right?
These guys are fucking terrible. Yeah, we don't have to do all that. I'm with you. I guess I'm just saying at the Bulwark, we spend all day being like, these guys are terrible. They lie. They make shit up. They do racist attacks on Kamala. And so, and I'm not saying we have to go high. I'm not doing the Michelle Obama thing. I'm just saying if you're going to go low, maybe make it based on something that happened.
Maybe it should be actually factual. Okay, I understand that. Okay, let's play. This is your man. This is your guy from last night here. Yeah, you, Tim Miller. Here
Josh Shapiro.
Yeah.
I liked Mayor Pete too. So throw that out there.
All right, well, let's play it.
I'm under the gun.
I know you know this.
Oh, this is actually this is.
My God, what a treasure you have in Josh Shapiro.
All right.
Holy hell, can this guy bring the fire? He can bring the fire. This is a visionary leader. Also, I have to tell you, everybody in America knows when you need a bridge fixed, call that guy. And I think sometimes we forget and you see people a little one-dimensional, but seeing a guy who cares so deeply about his family, a man with compassion, vision, and I'll have to tell you this, I know this from experience, there is no one you would rather go to a Springsteen concert in Jersey with than him, than that
guy. Harry, that was classy, don't you think?
Hey, who doesn't love the boss, right? So it's wild to me to watch. I don't know, a few weeks ago, And we're all watching this day to day, and it feels like an eternity ago. This was a totally different race and set of dynamics. And picking the guy who doesn't add anything, but as Tim's saying, we can argue about that, but is not taken away, provides a nice, just optical presentation that this isn't two coastal people. I think there's some real benefits to that, maybe in this ridiculously short, super weird race we've had, where you have a Democratic ticket now that really hasn't been vetted in any way, just because of how it came to be. And I was reading the New York Post this morning. There were like 7 different Oppo stories about Walz, and he's a bad military guy, and he let riots happen, and this and that. So you can feel the attack lines they're working into, and some of those do have to do with policy stuff. But I think, Tim, in this election, which is uncommon, you have a lot of double hitters who are just utterly relieved to have an option who is not Trump and does not seem terribly, terribly old. And so even if Kamala has not done a lot of press, it's like, okay, this is all right. This isn't making me run away. At least, very early in, this is a guy who can perform on stage, who has a credible record and personal biography, and there's just nothing disqualifying. And maybe that is more appealing here than anything that might interrupt this incredible momentum Harris has had with all these people just breathing a sigh of relief. Like we don't have this ridiculously unappealing choice the poll after poll showed Americans didn't want. This guy is not upsetting to me. A vice president's a complicated appendix in any case. Like what are they there for? And especially if you don't have a very elderly president that has you thinking about that all the time. I think there's a way to roll this way, and you make your couch fucking jokes. You shout out Springsteen. You perform on stage because you're good at that. You're a guy who's won office, and maybe that's enough.
All right. Listen, welcome to the Beat Up on Tim Miller show today.
The internet is tough out there, Don. It's like people, I'm out there. They're like, "What do you think about Walz?" I'm like, "I don't know, B-." It's like, "Why do you hate Walz? Why do you hate Walz? What is your problem?" A+ is only. A+ is an F. That's all we can give out here.
You've got some fans. Sharon in the chat says, "I like Tim!" ! Sabrina says, "I heart Tim." I think they have a little crush on you. Carol White says, "Tim Miller." People like you. So look. People agree with you. We're just having a. But didn't you think that was sort of a classy move? And even if Josh Shapiro is not on the ticket, Tim, Richard, I haven't forgotten about you. Don't you think that by him being there and at least the appearance of him being on board, that helps out tremendously?
For sure. I thought it was really classy. I thought the event last night was great. I mean, just as a package put together. The acknowledgement of Shapiro, having him on stage, I thought was good. I liked the thing that did kind of tug at my former Republican heartstrings was this ode to America. You felt like both of them really appreciated that when Kamala was talking about how, what are the odds? Like the two of us, middle class, me, single mom in Oakland, you in Nebraska, only in America. Can we go to the White House? USA chance. I mean, that's good. I think that's a nice contrast, especially for those of us that grew up in shining city on a hill republicanism that look at Trump and are like, you hate America. I thought that was a nice contrast. So I thought that was good last night.
That we're taking back our country and the flag. Is that what it felt like to you?
Yeah, a little bit. We're not flying the flag upside down at Harris Shapiro rallies. That's Trump. That's Trump Vance where they have the upside down flag.
So can I ask you something real quick? Because I want to get the most out of you while I have you. Because look, Republicans are trying to, and I think some in the Democratic Party as well they're trying to say that Walz is this ultra liberal and just sort of making him out to be this boogeyman. And if you actually look at his voting record, this is his congressional voting record I want to put up, where it shows that he is a solid centrist, especially on his, if you look at his look at the way he voted when he was in Congress. He's done some things as governor that people may, think that's a little far left, but he's not like some member of the squad that people are making him out to be.
Yeah, no, they didn't put Ilhan Omar on the ticket. No, he was good in Congress. You can see it right there, right square in the middle of the conference, maybe even a little even further towards the center. And he wasn't in his first 2 years as governor. So the thing is, then in I guess the midterms, they won what they call the trifecta, where they got the House and Senate in Minnesota, and they just passed this laundry list of progressive priorities. That's why a lot of progressives like him. And but it just is what it is, right? Like, it was just down the line: climate, abortion, economic issues, LGBT issues, weed. I mean, some of that stuff I'm for, right? But like, it was on every issue. They advanced a very progressive agenda item in Minnesota in the last couple of years. And so, and again, I think that's fine and defensible. It's just, if you're going to try to get those center right voters, they're going to have to try a little harder with this ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going to have to really work on that and emphasize the common ground, emphasize the bio. There are ways to do it. Emphasize Kamala's record as a DA and prosecutor. Emphasize how crazy Trump is, to Cliff's point, and Vance. They're not, appealing to that demo either. So there are ways to do it, but I think that's the concern, is not really his congressional record, but the last 2 years in Minnesota.
Okay. So even with that, just before, this will be your last question before I let Richard beat up on you. Do you think it's a winnable ticket?
Yeah, of course it's a winnable ticket, but this thing's gonna be close. I do think that there's a little bit, Dem's a little high on their own supply right now, which is great. Vibes are good.
Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
Can I tell you why?
Yeah, please tell me.
Again, it's me as the predictor. I think that, and I put this on social media, I think, Dems, it may seem like they're gloating a little bit. It's because I think the Republicans, I think MAGA, Trump, I think they're running a campaign from a bygone era that the most American people, independents, liberals, sane people, I think that they're not into that. They're not into questioning whether Kamala Harris is black or not. They're not interested in all of the crazy right-wing things. And I think that, much like Democrats misread 2016, I think that the Republicans are misreading 2024, and they're not interested in what the other side is selling for the most part.
Hard to argue with that. I think they're panicking. They've had a horrific 4 weeks ever since the Trump assassination attempt. Like, every decision they've made has been wrong and panicking and out of touch with mainstream America. And yet, it's still kind of a coin flip right now. So I don't know, Don. I'd like you. My mother's a swing voter, so my mother keeps me in line. She called me the other day, and she's like, "I think she's going to do it as long as she doesn't mess anything up." And I'm basically there. I think it's close. I think that they're on the right trajectory, but it's going to be a dogfight. And so,
you can argue with us, but don't argue with your mama, okay? Because that's not good. Richard, what say you before Tim leaves?
Yeah, tell me why I'm wrong, Richard.
First of all, I would give you an A+ every time I see you on MSNBC.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be on the panel with you. I just think you're wrong here. I think Tim Walz is a phenomenal choice. Phenomenal choice. Why are you laughing?
No, it's great. Let's do it.
We're loving it. Go, Richard, go.
Go, roll.
It's somehow funny that someone would say that Tim Miller is wrong. First of all, if you care about Pennsylvania, I would make the case that it's better to have Josh Shapiro spend the next 3 months in Pennsylvania than traveling around the country to the other swing states. So that's that. Secondly, you mentioned about vibes and policy. As a political communication strategist, I want to direct your attention to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. What did they have in common that made them great political leaders? And it was not vibes, that was part of it, but the vibes came from something else, and it wasn't necessarily policies, it was their ability to communicate. And Tim Walz's authenticity, which is the most important thing a public speaker or a politician can have, is off the charts. His warmth, his genuine humor, his authenticity. And the hit on Josh Shapiro, who I also loved, is that he was a little bit, ambitious, and he was trying too hard and trying to be too much like JFK or Barack Obama. And I think that down-home, simple, authentic, organic communication is exactly what Kamala needs and exactly what the country needs.
You've convinced me, Richard. I'm upgrading him. I'm upgrading him from C+ to B- after that speech, Richard. You got me. It's a B- pick now. Congrats,
Tim Miller. Thank you for joining the diverse dudes for Harris.
Lemonade, Lemon Nation, Lemonade. We'll see you guys soon.
Hey Tim, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Watch Tim over at the Bulwark. Tim, we appreciate you joining us, and be safe. down there in New Orleans. Stay cool. Thanks a lot. Okay, gentlemen, let's discuss. So everyone has weighed in. I think, Harry's weighed in. Cliff has weighed in a little bit. Cliff, what did you think of the speeches?
Oh, I thought they were great. I think both of them were great, but I think since it was Waltz's first, I could focus on that. I think what everybody has said, it was a very relatable, very, just natural, right? Not overperforming, good humor. I didn't have a problem at all with the couch, with the couch joke. And I think it had a combination of vibes, like what we're talking about, right? The emphasis on joy, on the humor, but it also had some policy, and that's the part that that not everybody's necessarily talking about. They were talking about economics improvement. They were talking about crime in a serious and a joking way, right? That the truth is that crime went up under Trump, and that's not even counting the crimes that he committed, right? And so you've got both the humor, but also like a very serious issue that's going to be an issue during this campaign. So I think that he really hit it out the box. He had the right amount of talking about himself and his bio, right, which was a requirement, but also, giving deference to and acknowledging the vice president. You would see him every now and then turn around and acknowledge her, right, and get the audience to, and using her lines of "we're not going back." And so I think that there was some good chemistry there. I think that was some good communication there, and I think that it's only going to get better moving forward. It's not going to be easy, right? We know this is a 50-50 country for the most part, but I will predict, I do think that the gap in terms of the popular vote is going to be larger with this ticket than it was even with Biden-Harris.
Yeah. Did you want to say something, Richard? I saw you raising your hand.
I just wanted to say, even if the couch joke was somehow inaccurate, I just frickin' love that he went there. Because that's what normal dudes do. That's what normal human beings do. They kind of playfully make fun of things like that. And he's not constrained by this artificial political correctness, which particularly Republicans hate. So I think on a human level, that was a great move.
You know what? I never thought about it that way, because that's the kind of joke that I would make with my guy friends, especially like my straight guy friends. I'd be like, bro, get up off the couch. You know what I mean? I don't know if that humor, they call it locker room talk or whatever. I don't know if I just thought it was totally fine. Terry, do you have some reporting on why the Harris campaign chose Walz over Shapiro, Walz, I should say, over Shapiro, because Shapiro seemed to be the odds-on favorite, but the reporting, and you tell me if this is wrong, is that Walz came in and said, look, whatever you need, I'll be your attack dog. I'll be whatever it is. I'm just here to support you. And Shapiro, not so much when he went in to meet with her.
So my understanding is, Shapiro was lobbying pretty hard for the job, or people were lobbying for him in ways that I think gave some pause to the Harris team about his ambition, his ability to play that secondary role and fill in as needed. And that was one determination, and that she just felt that there was a click with Walz. And in this very short cycle, that might really matter. It was interesting to me to see all of these right-wing media outlets and Republican politicians try to say that Shapiro couldn't be there because he's Jewish, because of Israel, given that the vice president is married to a Jewish guy. That this is the party that long ago nominated Joe Lieberman for vice president. Most of the lawmakers who we have nationally are Democrats, and it was interesting to see an attempt to make that the storyline in the issue, even though there's not much daylight between what they've said, as a pair of governors about Israel and like local protests and those sorts of things.
They're kind of on the same page when it comes to the issue.
Yeah.
But I think because, and let me just talk, and I think I'm going to help you out here, because what I think where you're going is this. There have been several high-profile Republicans who have seized on Harris's choice of governor, Tim Walz, as her running mate, suggesting that anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party influenced her decision not to choose a Jewish running mate, and Governor Josh Shapiro. GOP Vice Presidential nominee Senator J.D. Vance told reporters in Philadelphia on Tuesday that it seemed like Harris didn't select Shapiro because Democrats were concerned that grassroots activists in their party wouldn't accept a Jewish nominee. Now, that is coming from Republicans. That's not coming from anybody who's on the inside, anybody who is close to the source. That's just things that they're making up. So before we discuss that, I just want to play this, and I'll Cliff, you'll be, and I'm sorry, Harry, you'll be the first voice because I cut you off here. I just want to play quickly. This is Mehdi Hassan, our friend, also a friend of the show, last night addressing that issue, and then we'll discuss. Watch this.
Mehdi, because as you pointed out, governing, the decision that she made is also being used to criticize her and her viewpoints in the Democratic Party. They're talking less from the Republican side about Tim Walz and more about the decision not to choose Josh Shapiro as the governor. And the word anti-Semitism is coming up as some basis to substantiate that criticism. What's your reaction?
I mean, it's one of the most, one of the dumbest and most dangerous lies that we've heard from the Republicans in recent days. Obviously, the call went out on whatever right-wing WhatsApp group, because they're all doing it. Ari Fleischer, Newt Gingrich, they've all been on it. Nikki Haley, Ted Cruz, they've all been piling in, but it's anti-Semitic. I think Eric Erickson said today, there's no Jews at the top of the Democratic Party allowed, to which Chuck Schumer responded, news to me. And it's not just the Senate Majority Leader who is Jewish Democrat, by the way. All 10 Jewish senators in the United States Senate are Democrats. 24 of the 27 House members who are Jewish are Democrats. All 4 governors in America who are Jewish are Democrats. The Secretary of State, the Treasury Secretary, the Attorney General, the Homeland Security Secretary, and the Second Gentleman are all Jewish Democrats. So it's a nonsense slide. That's the Democratic Party's record. Look at the Republican Party record. Vance is saying this is anti-Semitic. The guy is running alongside Donald Trump, the most openly anti-Semitic presidential candidate we've seen in our lifetimes. This is a guy who hosted a Holocaust denier for dinner at his home less than 2 years ago, who says American Jews are disloyal to Israel, constantly says that, who famously praised Nazis, saying Jews will not replace us as very fine people, who last week was on a radio show where he agreed with the host calling Doug Emhoff a crappy Jew. Today he called Adam Schiff shifty Schiff. So Republicans really need to sit this one out. I mean, Vance himself has defended Marjorie Taylor Greene, she of Jewish space lasers fame. So the idea that they want to make this an issue, good luck to them.
Brian, what?
So I'll ask you then, Harry, because I think he is a very good assessment. You cannot argue with the facts of that when he talks about who's in the party, what positions they have, and that they're all Jewish. But to say that Gaza and Israel would not play part of the VP calculus, I think would also be disingenuous.
Look, man, Jews have been one of the most loyal parts of the Democratic coalition, which, starts with Black women who show up, who vote, and have been a big part of this. And there are a lot of Jews who've been asking questions during this protest movement and in recent years, who are upset that the term Zionist is considered a slur. And I'm not trying to take us into the answers to that or international politics, but I will observe that we had some wild protest stuff playing out on college campuses, often in liberal areas in Democratic cities, including New York City, where I'm at. And that is cooled for right now. And very obviously, the Democratic ticket would like this not to be the set of issues and would like this to be the garbage line it is Republicans are trying to use, and no one's biting on at this point. But we're waiting to find out what's about to happen with an attack from Iran into Israel. We're waiting to find out what happens in the fall. And this could really upset some of those politics. And last thing I want to say here is Democrats, it's just harder. You're putting together a big tent with all sorts of different groups with divergent interests and explaining why it's the same. Republicans are just like, I'm a winner. It's Trump's whole salesman shtick. Everyone loves a winner. Don't you want to be a winner? And trying now to keep those groups together is complicated. And very obviously, you go back to the debate, right? When foreign policy stuff came up, when Afghanistan came up, Biden, as he was going through his mental notes and trying to get there and sometimes losing the thread, but he was clearly trained just not to answer any of that. That this is advantageous turf for Republicans right now. And the quieter things are through Election Day with the direction we're at, the better for the Democratic ticket. If these issues start getting forced, and we really don't know much about what a Harris foreign policy would be. I don't think the vice president matters very much there, by the way.
But Harry,
the more that gets tested, the more complicated it is all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I would think that if you listen to, again, the logic and the facts of Mehdi Hasan, who I believe is right on this particular issue, wouldn't it behoove Democrats to get out front of this issue and actually state the facts about this? Maybe Harris doesn't want to touch it. I don't know. Maybe there's, Richard, I'll ask you this, and then I'm going to talk to you, Cliff, about something else. Oh, wait, Cliff, are you disagreeing? You don't think they should touch it?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they should touch it. I don't think they have to touch it. I think, Republicans threw it out there for a reason, to try to control the narrative, right? And even to be talking about whether or not it's accurate or not is to play their game, right? It's similar to the way, Tim said earlier, oh, by the way, JD Vance did not fuck the couch, right? If that has to be one of your talking points, then you are losing the conversation, right? Because you're now on the turf of what happened with the couch. And I think to do the same thing with the question around Shapiro and why this choice was made, it's enough for Democrats to focus on, and for the Harris campaign to focus on, that they've got a great ticket, that he's got a great bio, and to keep moving forward with these rallies. I don't think there needs to be discussion around a negative that just plays their game.
Richard, I have some Republican friends. I have MAGA acquaintances. I have some woman-hating friends who all are saying this exact same thing. She was afraid of the progressive wing of her party. And this is, that's why she picked Walz, is because she didn't want to talk about Israel, and the party is anti-Semitic and so on. I was like, well, what about her husband? And they don't really have an answer for that. And so I have heard what Mehdi Hasan has said, that it's coming from somewhere in the Republican Party, and that they're putting it out there and they actually believe this. Do you think they should discuss it, or ignore it, as they should ignore the, she's not black?
Here is, I think, one of the most important reasons to have not chosen Josh Shapiro, in addition to what I already said. Kamala Harris has this beautiful opportunity 3 months before an election to start to find herself from a blank slate, right? You do not want to spend the first 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, including the convention, having to deal with this issue on either side. And I have a message to so I'm a proud Jewish Democrat, right? I would love to see a Jew in the White House as president or vice president, but much, much, much more important to me, I do not want this to be a Christian nationalist Project 2025 fascist country. Fascism and Christian nationalism and Judaism don't go well together. And I think we need to really focus on the threat to our people of that. And for the left wing of my party, who's all upset about Gaza, awesome. I get it. We hear you. Do you want the Women's Health Protection Act to be signed into law, or for women to not have the reproductive freedoms for the next 5 or 10 or 20 years or ever? Let's focus on the things that are really at stake here.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. And someone in the chat said, if you have woman-hating friends, get rid of them. I joke with my friends who don't like Kamala Harris, and I say, what are you? You don't like you don't think a woman can be president? That's why I call them women. They're not actually women-hating. Okay, so listen, I want to pivot now and talk about the campaign events, because this was just really surprising to me. And I'll play this later. I don't know if you guys saw JD Vance, and what he did today was a stunt. It was actually embarrassing. But Vice President Kamala Harris, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz spent their first full day as running mates on Wednesday, rallying Democrats across the Midwest, but also got an idea of just how hotly contested the region will be when they overlap on a Wisconsin tarmac with Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance. Vance's plans to follow Harris and Walz to every state that they visit this week. That's seemingly a terrible miscalculation, I believe, because while Harris is attracting tens of thousands to packed arenas, Vance is reportedly struggling to draw crowds of even 200 people to his event. Let's play. This is Harris's crowd size in Wisconsin.
It looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. That's right, Oakland.
Okay, and then there's also video of just like long lines. So here's what I know. We know from 2020 that long lines don't necessarily translate into votes, right, Cliff? It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen, but it does show enthusiasm, interest, right? Whether the candidate is relevant or the candidates are relevant or not. And if people will take their time out of their day to go and to a rally, that says a lot. So, Cliff, what do you think about the energy? It's kind of reminiscent, I believe, of Obama in 2008. It's not crazy like the Trump rallies, where I haven't seen people where it's like a fair and a bazaar outside, but the energy seems reminiscent of 2008.
Definitely similar to 2008, different in some ways, right? Because 2008 was, it was kind of a buildup, right? There was a whole campaign. Some folks were skeptical until, Iowa and New Hampshire. And then from there, like the ball started to kind of roll. This has happened over the course of over 2 days or over 2 weeks, that it's just been like spontaneous combustion, right? And like you said, big crowds are not the end all be all, right? But it sure makes everything else a lot easier, right? It also can lead to the fundraising. It can lead to volunteers, right? At the end of the day, you got to take those big crowds and you still got to organize them and activate them to do some actual work. So it's not the end all be all, but you're sure in a better position. And I can tell you again, I was at the Atlanta rally. This was before the Walz selection, the Atlanta rally that Harris did last week, and the energy inside there was real. Like this is not a game. This is not something that's just passing. And they haven't even got to the DNC, to the convention yet. So imagine the bump that then comes after that. So this is going to be sustainable, and she's sure in that ticket is sure in a better position than the Trump Vance ticket, which, as you said, is struggling to get audiences. And think about the difference in the audiences, right? Even when he used to have big audiences, it wasn't joy, right? It wasn't really a celebration. Like it was an audience in an arena full of grievances, right? This is a very different feel. And at the end of the day, this joy, call it vibes if you want, but vibes and momentum can carry people to the White House.
Yeah, it can. I want to, and this is going to be for you, Harry, okay? Because as I mentioned, J.D. Vance is following Kamala Harris around. I mean, it seems a little stalkerish to me. I'm like, hey, I don't want to go out with you anymore. Why are you following me around? Do I have to get a restraining order? Like, does my dad have to come over to your house and threaten you? Because the pressure and the couch jokes maybe beginning to get to Vance, because he had a host of very weird answers to reporters' questions today. Perhaps this is the weirdest of the bunch. Watch this.
A little bit different here. You've been criticized as being a little too serious, maybe angry sometimes. What makes you smile? What makes you happy?
Well, I smile at a lot of things, including bogus questions from the media, man. I mean, look, I think if you watch a full speech that I give, I actually am having a good time out here and I'm enjoying this. But look, sometimes you got to take the good with the bad. And right now I am angry.
Okay, well, that was a little weird, because that was a Fox reporter, Harry, and that was, man, if that wasn't a softball,
right?
He kind of made the point, didn't he?
Harry, what do you think?
Entirely made the point. Well, what makes you happy? Well, let me tell you why I'm angry. So, what do I know? But and going back to a couple of the things Cliff was saying, rallies aren't the only thing. Crowd size isn't the only thing. We could actually talk about all of these sort of sudden eruptions we've had recently of different sorts, from the George Floyd protests to the Women's March, and how hard it can be to convert that energy into a sustainable goal politically. All that said, Trump loves winning and bigness and locker room talk. And in this big dick contest, that he's been looking to have for a long time, where he's obsessed since he first ran, and since when he was paying people to be there, when he rode down the escalator, to insisting his inaugural crowd was historically big when it was anything but, and the weather was bad. This stuff matters to him. And in place of demeaning himself by doing the ankle biting, nipping at the heels thing that you do when things are not working the way you want, he's sending J.D. Vance to do it. You can also see it in him being like, I take back the debate, but let's have this other debate. Like the person who's asking for debates in any political circumstance is the person who says, shit, I need some moment, I need ratings, I need something to change and a place to swing things. And right now I'm worried I'm not on the right path. You send your number two to follow the other ticket around and look like a goof in smaller rooms and settings when that's the case. So no, people showing up and feeling vibes with Kamala, with the ticket is not the only thing, but this has always mattered to Trump. I think his instincts there are actually right, that this speaks to where things are going, and where momentum is going. And suddenly this guy who's always sucked up all the oxygen in the room isn't getting much attention, except when Vance is doing this pathetic thing we're talking about. He's demeaning himself by talking to black journalists and saying, I don't know if she's black. You can feel the desperate stench, the flop sweat happening here. And there's lots of time for things to turn. It's going to be very close. But he's indicating this is not the set of dynamics I want. I'm starting to fear that I look like a loser.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird, though. I did a thing the other night on social where I said signs that you're in a cult. I looked up signs that you're in a cult, and almost every single one was in there. Like you sell their stuff, you wear the uniform, the leader is always right. There's never a reason to leave the group. There's no accountability for financing. And it's like there's every single one applies to MAGA. It's really astounding. This is, though, I thought this is a very creepy moment. And this is, I think, a self-own. J.D. Vance today on the tarmac, because he's following the vice president around. I want to know what you guys think of it. I don't want to influence you. I think I've already said it, but don't let me influence you. Here it is. Tell me what you think.
All right, stay back, please.
Come by and one, just take a good look at the plane. Hopefully it's going to be my plane in a few months. But I also thought you guys might get lonely because the vice president doesn't answer questions from reporters and hasn't for 17 days. Have they given you guys an explanation for why she won't take questions from reporters? No? Nobody? Okay, great. Well, I hope that she changes her mind because it'd be good for the American people, and I think it'd be good for you all if she actually ran a real campaign instead of one from a basement teleprompter. So have a good one, guys. See ya.
What would you like to hear from her?
I'd love her to answer these questions. I'd love her to just answer what she wants to do and also explain why every single position she has changed. She pretends to be a prosecutor, yet she pretends to be a tough on crime prosecutor, and yet here she is wanting to defund the police. She's the border czar, yet she's opened up the American southern border. This is a person. Okay,
we get it. So he's saying, look, number one, to me, it seems a little desperate. Number two, it seems like, he says that she has changed her stance on the man is, I mean, he's a shapeshifter. Like anyway, go on.
No,
it's weird.
It's weird. It's creepy. It's stalkerish. Right. This is the guy who changed his perspective on his running mate from America's Hitler to the greatest person ever. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of cred to challenge Kamala on that.
It's flop sweat. It's flop sweat all the way down. But that's it. Just as like an American citizen guy, I know who I'm voting for. But I think it's healthy, and we just saw this with Biden, to talk to the press, to answer questions, to lay out more of what you're doing, and a competitive race gets there. But right now we're in
Harry, yes.
Harry, yes.
Again, I'll let you finish, but Harry, I agree with you. But look, there's Secret Service involved, there's security, they're on the tarmac. It's like, come on, bro, what are you doing?
It's pathetic.
Go on.
It's pathetic. But do you know? I'm speaking of the Democrats here, and I understand the stakes are terribly high. There's a tremendous difference between these parties and these tickets, and you want to do what you need to win. But I would like to know what I'm voting for and how their priorities work. And you get some of that in rallies, but like taking questions and answering that, which is usually part of the primary process. And this is weird, and maybe this is tactically smart, but I would like to see that. I think Vance begging for it that way is pathetic, nonetheless, and points to a loser. Someone who needs something to change for his thing to work.
Okay, you guys, Tim said earlier, if someone was making that joke about Kamala Harris or Tim Walz that I may not like it, I would probably find it funny anyways. Again, but imagine if that was Kamala Harris doing that to J.D. Vance, wouldn't you be like, oh man, What is she doing? Like, that's oof. Okay. Um, I would, so Cliff, here's how I feel about it. I think it is perfectly fine to answer. The question should be asked and they should be answered. Now, that is as a journalist. Now, if I am advising the vice president, I would say you're on a roll. Don't screw it up. Why? No unforced errors. The fewer opportunities in front of a camera where you can mess it up, the better.
No, clearly, I mean, two things. Yes, that's keep it going, right? Keep all the energy going. Ride this wave. Ride it straight into the convention. Ride it for another week or two after the convention. But at the end of the day, just even the premise is false because they are talking about. I mean, heck, her commercials were talking about. She's been very clear about some of the immediate priorities being codifying Roe. She's been active on
not standing in front of. That's different though, Cliff, than standing in front of reporters and taking questions.
Yeah, but this isn't that point. Like, we're not at that point, right? Like, literally, this is a 2-week campaign. We're really not at that point.
We're 90 days away.
Exactly. We are 90 days away, and there's going to be plenty of time for all of that, including these debates that Donald Trump is trying to duck out of, right? And so I just don't think now is the time for that. But if what you're concerned about, if people are concerned about knowing what the issues are, then there's some of that. But if people just want to see, well, how are you going to do answering questions in a debate? Not to mention that as vice president, she's already done a good share of that, talking about the policies of the actual administration. So the time is going to come. One thing that's clear, right? Nobody's serious and legitimate has really accused Kamala Harris of not being able to answer questions. Her experience as an attorney, at even sitting on the Senate and asking questions and answering during hearings. Like, she can handle herself in a press conference or in a debate, and there's going to be plenty of time to see that. But right now, they are riding this wave, and they should correctly. To do anything else would actually be political malpractice at this point.
What do you think, Richard?
No, I think that's great. I think there's plenty of time. I think, honestly, and other people have said this, Trump and J.D. Vance and the Republicans really were caught by surprise. They thought they had it in the bag. They thought they were running against this old man and they were going to win. And I really don't think they know what to do. Having said that, my biggest concern is how much focus is Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Laura Trump and the RNC putting on activating their cult followers, right? You're in a cult if you are even thinking about affecting election results because you are a poll worker or a Secretary of State. And that is, it's not, quite honestly, we're down to this question, fundamental political question of, doesn't really matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes. And that is my existential concern. And I see you agree, Cliff.
Absolutely. As I said, I'm sitting here in Georgia where just this week, this new state board of elections, a state which was reformatted in the Georgia voter suppression bill that was passed in 2021. And they just came out with a new rule. They've done several new rules, but the most dangerous of which is the one that's been reported in some of the media, which basically is empowering local county boards of elections to do inquiries and to slow down the certification process. I've said ever since 2021 that one of the most dangerous parts of that voter suppression bill wasn't so much the restrictions on food and water, although that's really, really bad, right? And there was a lot of other really bad stuff in there. But I've said from the beginning, the changes that they made to the state board of elections and to the certification process were the most dangerous parts of that bill. And we are starting to see that play out now. People talk about Black motivation, Black voter turnout, Black men, and what are we going to do and all that. and they act like our turnout is only a function of motivation. And what we've been reminded of this week is that it's not just motivation, it's also a matter of what is our access to the freedom to vote, what is the voting rights infrastructure, and that we're in a very precarious situation in places like Georgia, in battlegrounds, in Ohio, where they've been purging voters left and right, in places like Florida, in places like North Carolina. And so that's an issue that I don't think has been getting enough attention of, even though I do know it has been a priority of Vice President Harris during this administration.
Speaking of the vice president, but someone who wants to be vice president, again, we're talking about J.D. Vance. Harry, I understand that you have some reporting indicating that Trump really regrets this VP pick.
I do not. I've certainly read that.
You have seen?
Oh,
I'm wondering. Oh, I'm sorry. Have you seen?
Yes, I've seen. I do not have my own report in there, just to be clear. But he did this when things seemed like they were going swimmingly well, and he was on a victory path, and Vance seemed like that sort of pick. Someone like Tim Scott could just politically, tactically speaking, sort of expanded things. I don't know who Vance appeals to, who conceivably was going to be voting for Biden or Harris, and now he's sort of stuck there. And he's sending his vice president out to sort of follow the other ticket around and confront them at airports. So, my goodness!
But
explain why he's not weird and he's not happy. He's angry, but he's got reasons.
But it looks like J.D. Vance has at least a little renewed vigor. Richard, go on.
I mean, if the Republican Party decided to replace J.D. Vance, they could figure out a way to do that.
Well, they could. It's getting a little late. I mean, I think they'd have to do it within the next day or so because the ballots are going to start to be printed. One would think. I just want to, and speaking of not being happy and perhaps unraveling, I wanted you to read what Trump posted last night because the man seems to be really losing it. So let's put it up. Except to read it, I don't have the exact copy here, but what are the chances that crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in history of the U.S., whose presidency was unconstitutionally stolen from him by Barack Hussein Obama, crazy Nancy Pelosi, shifty Adam Schiff, crying Chuck Schumer, and others on the lunatic left, crashes a Democratic National Convention and tries to take back the nomination, beginning with challenging me to another debate. He feels like he made a historically tragic mistake by handing over the U.S. presidency, a coup, to the people in the world he most hates, and he wants it back now. What is that? Is he that shook by the popularity of these two that they're getting all the attention, that they're getting the crowds, that what is going on?
I think it's explained. I think it's explained in an article that I wrote in the Washington Post right after the 2016 election entitled, "Is Donald Trump Mentally Ill?" He's nuts.
Yeah, he is. He's nuts. Anybody else? Everybody agrees. It's like nothing to say.
Yeah, it's the Occam's razor answer. It's the most basic explanation, which is he's just that crazy.
Entertaining as hell, but he is totally. I mean, if you don't believe, it shocks me that people who are generals like General Mattis and General, who spent the most amount of time.
You said General Mattis and then you cut out. I want you to get all the generals in there.
Yeah. Sorry, General Mattis, John Kelly, the chief of staff, who said he's the most, flawed, broken, damaged man he's ever seen. Why does that not resonate? And you have George Conway and you have Mary Trump. Everybody's out there saying this guy's completely unfit. And somehow, okay, let's just move on to the next news cycle.
I want to end something on a note that I think is really wonderful. This is Tim Walz talking about back when he was, I think, a guidance counselor or a teacher or a coach, one of those, whenever he was in the school system. helping with the very first Gay Straight Alliance, helping a student start that and then becoming an advisor. Watch this.
Great story.
Students come to me who were concerned that there was an uptick in some bullying towards our gay and lesbian students. And this is in the mid-90s. They asked if I would be interested in helping start a Gay Straight Alliance group. My answer was absolutely. And I recognized my responsibility in that. You have an older, white, straight, married male football coach who's deeply concerned that these students are treated fairly and that there's no bullying. And the idea that my players would be interested in coming to that and learn and to speak, to create a culture in a school that was welcoming, open, and understanding was something Gwen and I always strove for.
How does that play, you think, Cliff, in, as they say, in, what is it, Iowa? How does it play there?
I mean, I think it plays well in Iowa. I think it plays well everywhere. It's funny because I saw just about an hour or two ago on social media, somebody did a video. They call it like a Midwesterner's guide to understanding Tim Walz. And they were going through this list of things that he would do. Like if you called him up to borrow some tools to fix your car, he'd come over and actually help you fix the car. And it was just this whole litany of things. And I think what it speaks to is the same thing that video speaks to, the same thing that some of his other ads, the ad that he did about, how every father should be able to hear their child sing. I mean, there's so many examples, even today at the rally today, where somebody was passing out and he's like, get this person some water, get some water. And then he adds this, take care of your neighbors, right? He is what, people are saying he is what J.D. Vance pretends to be. He is what some of these MAGA evangelicals pretend to be. Just the notion of take care of your neighbors, take care of your students that want you to form a LGBTQ organization. Like just be kind to people. And as he said in the speech, and if you can't, at least mind your damn business. Like that's just some basic human kindness that at the end of the day, I think people are going to be able to relate to. And I think it fits well with Vice President Harris and the tone that she's been setting. And I think there's really something too, that when they met over the weekend, that she felt a comfort level with him. And I think it just really shows. And it's not something that's new and manufactured, and it's not performative. By all accounts, it is who he is.
It's the same guy that he's been the same guy for decades, because that was back in the 90s. I'll let you get in, Richard, but this is what someone put on social media today. Posted, says, Tim Walz really is that guy at Home Depot that you don't know, that spends 20 to 30 minutes randomly explaining to you why you need to use hex bolts for your project. J.D. Vance is a guy berating the cashier at Panera for not giving him a refill on his lemonade. That's a difference.
What I was going to say, since we were talking at the beginning about Josh Shapiro and him being Jewish, Tim Walz may not be Jewish, but he is an absolute total mensch.
Okay,
Gary.
I watched that clip that just hit me, and I know my Trumpy family members, my in-laws, a bunch of people actually really don't like acronyms and that sort of talk. Hearing a guy just talking about being decent and for the people right around him, I think that I'm no expert, but that seems resonant to me, and the sort of thing people can connect with, even with different politics, and without hearing some coded other message there. Just solid, like how you want your neighbors, your coaches, your teachers to be.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what I'm most impressed about this whole show is, number one, the level of discourse was great. We got some good information, and I'm really impressed by Harry Siegel's vinyl collection because it's amazing. I collect vinyl, and I have, pretty close, but maybe not. Who's your favorite? What do you have up there? John
I'm going to pull up random. This is all the jazz up here, because my wife doesn't let me listen to it. So the other stuff's downstairs. Tony Scott.
Tony Scott. I like that.
This is very good stuff.
That's good. Do you use it?
All the time. All the time. I don't listen to anything else because then I would stop listening to all this, and I spent too much time finding it and having it. Now I got to play it.
Look, I started collecting vinyl before it became popular, maybe 15, 20 years ago. I started buying stuff, and now I go to the store and those same albums that I bought for $1.99, $2, or 15, 20, 30 bucks. And it's amazing. And then I went to, I co-hosted one of the debates in Detroit back in, I don't know if it was the last election cycle before or two before. And Shanola has this great vinyl, turntable, and I got one of those, and it sounds terrific. The only thing is that you got to go and change the album. When you do it in digitally, it just keeps running. But that's cool.
I like stopping. I got to think what I want to put on, and it was actually, I was in Detroit for years, in Ann Arbor. Spent a lot of time in Detroit, and I'm in Brooklyn. Everything is so expensive here, and in Detroit, in Michigan, there were just these gigantic stores, and there were like older people who I suspected died, who had incredible record collections, and what you can buy for $2-3, not as an obsessive, not as a collector, and just beautiful music. It was like, oh man, how am I going to get all this back home?
Yeah. Well, I like putting the needle on the record, and I like hearing it. So you guys are the best. Thank you so much for for being on today. I really appreciate it. I love having you on, Harry, getting to know you, as well as Cliff Albright. So Harry Siegel, the editor of The City, columnist for the New York Daily News. Also Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Black Voters Matter Fund. Earlier, we had Tim Miller with us, the host of the Bulwark podcast, co-host of the Next Level podcast, MSNBC contributor, and of course, Mr. Richard Green, an author, a lawyer, political communication strategist, and a renowned celebrity speech coach. Loved having you all on. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Be well. You can click off now, and I'll just talk to my family here. Go ahead, Richard. What do you want to say?
Nothing. Just thanks. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Okay. See you guys.
Everybody. Thanks, Don.
All right. Bye. Thank you. Bye. So, guys, that was a great show, right? Thank you, Bunny Scoggins. I agree. It was a great show. Hamilton says another terrific show. Thank you all. Will Butte says, laughing my A off. I don't know. Oh, Kyoko says, I don't know what you guys are laughing about. Have a great evening, everyone. Great show, says Mama B. Great show today, says Pat Karf. I agree. It was a great show. So what do you guys think? I think look, I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed for J.D. Vance chasing the vice president around, and he should know better. He's got his Secret Service there, her Secret Service. They're on a tarmac, which is also probably not the safest place to be. And it just seemed very gimmicky and desperate to me. Does he have a point about answering questions? Yes. I think that the vice president is going to have to answer some questions from reporters. That's going to, whether, I don't know if she's going to do it now or when, but she's going to have to do it. So he has a point there, but just chasing her around, I think, is a bit embarrassing. I also stick by what I said about the kind of campaign that MAGA is running right now. It is from a time gone by, and it is bordering on being the 2024 version, not even bordering, I think it is, the 2024 version of Willie Horton, and also being, sort of a welfare queen sort of vibe to it, where they're talking about, whether she's black and all those things. It's just embarrassingly old and antiquated strategy and a way of thinking. And I really do think Americans, for the most part, are sick of it. Now, the people who are the extreme right, the MAGA people, they love it because they have been trained to go along with what Donald Trump is saying. And in a way, he's feeding off of their angst and anxiety and hatred and anger as well. So it's a vicious circle or cycle there. They just keep feeding off of each other. But I think ultimately it's not going to pay off. And I put something on social last night and I said, they don't understand that the American people are not buying and they don't want what they're selling at this point. There's a better strategy and they should probably get with it. And everybody said, shh, let them do it because they're going to lose. It's a losing message. And I really do think it's a losing strategy as well. There are better ways to do this. So thank you all. Make sure you hit the thumbs up before you go. I put the thing in for the pre-order for the book. I'm going to do that again. So you can do that because there's going to be homework soon. It releases in it's almost a month to the day. It's going to be on the 10th of September. It's August 7th. So get ready for that. And yes, I will do a national book tour and I'll probably be in a city near you. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, if not before, if there's some breaking news. So thanks to everyone who joined us. Lemon Nation, Lemonheads, have a fantastic evening. I'll see you tomorrow at 5. Thumbs up.